This one bit me twice in 1 month. I was flying a departure climb. The controller said to me, fly heading 020, join Victor 25 and resume on navigation. So I set up 020 on the heading and I pushed nav to arm the GPS. Then the controller comes back to me and says, fly present heading vectors for traffic. What button would you push to reconfigure the autopilot? A lot of pilots push heading to get themselves into heading mode. Watch what happens if we get the instruction to fly present heading for traffic and we press the heading button to go into heading mode. We don't go into heading mode, do we? Instead, we end up in roll mode. And as we jump ahead to where the needle comes alive, you can see that GPS mode was still armed. And now it goes active and we turn to intercept the course. That is not what ATC instructed us to do. Not only have I been bit by this issue, but I had a student who got bit by the same procedure in the same place. I taught him how to fix it, and 2 weeks later, he got bit again. So I have a caution for you. The GFC user interface is fundamentally different from most GA autopilots.
Yeah, you're probably familiar with simply pressing a button to go into the mode you want, and this is how most GA autopilots work. To go into heading mode, you simply press the heading button and you're there. Pressing the heading button a second time does nothing, though, since you already are in heading mode. The GFC700 operates differently. It has what we call an on-off interface. And to go into a mode, you press the button to turn it on, but if you press the button a second time, it turns it off.
During your transition to the GFC700, your fingers will do the wrong thing until you get used to this on-off behavior. So you always need to check your modes before and after making new selections. So let's break down the on-off modes in more detail. Some of the GFC700 modes are what we call basic modes. That means when you press the button, the mode immediately becomes active and is displayed in green. So here I pressed the heading button and the heading mode became active. If I press that button again, the mode turns off and we return to the default mode, which in this case is roll.
You know, Mossy, I see pilots forget about the default modes all the time. Just remember though, roll is the default lateral mode and pitch is the default vertical mode.
Yeah, to complete the picture, if I'm in roll mode and I press the heading button again, heading mode will turn on. I can go back and forth between heading and roll by pressing the heading button over and over again. So we saw how heading mode worked. Alt is another basic mode, but since it operates vertically, the default when you turn it off is pitch mode.
And that's true for most of the other vertical modes like VS, indicated airspeed, or flitch mode.
Some of the other GFC700 modes are what we call armed modes. For example, if we've selected GPS on our CDI and we press the nav button, GPS mode will be armed and displayed in white. Now, a really important point to remember is that armed modes only become active automatically. For example, GPS mode will go active only once the CDI needle starts to center. Glide path mode will only go active once the glide path needle centers.
Right. You can't force an armed mode to go active. You must wait for the needle to center. If you try to force the mode by clicking the button again, all that happens is it gets turned off. In this case, GPS mode has been disarmed and the annunciator went away. And it turns out that can be handy. There are times we want to prevent the airplane from capturing the course, so we would simply disarm GPS by pressing the nav button.
But once the mode is active and has turned green, the behavior changes. Pressing the button a second time will cause the GFC700 to return to the default mode, which in this case is roll.
So Mossy, let me ask you a question. What happens if you inadvertently turn off GPS mode and try to turn it back on again by pressing the nav button?
Well, it won't immediately go active, right? It's an armed mode. What happens is it gets armed, and then right away it goes active because the needle is centered. So now you have the big picture of armed modes. Another thing to watch out for is that sometimes you can arm multiple modes with one button. For example, if you're on a vector to final and they clear you for the ILS approach, pressing the approach button will arm both localizer and glide slope modes.
The nice thing is that you can disarm both of them simply by pressing the approach button again. Okay, so I have a little quiz for you. Let's say we go back to our original scenario. ATC told us to fly present heading for traffic, which means we're not supposed to intercept the course. If you press the heading button, what will you get?
You will turn off heading mode and roll mode will become active, but GPS will still be armed, so you will still intercept the course, and I think ATC is going to be really upset with you. Now, let me ask you something, Peter. What if you press the nav button instead?
Well, then you will disarm GPS mode, you will remain in heading mode and fly through the course as instructed, and I think ATC will love you.
We do have some pro tips for you. Because it will take a while for you to get used to this on-off behavior, pro tip number 1 is you need to check your annunciators before and after you make button pushes. This is a technique straight from the airlines. Even though they've mastered their autopilots, they use a very specific mode management procedure to avoid mistakes. The first step of the mode management procedure is to check your current mode. The reason being, you might already be in the mode you want. Second, press the button to change to the desired mode. Third, confirm the new flight mode annunciators. Make sure you got what you selected and call them out. Fourth is really important. Make sure the aircraft is actually doing what you programmed it to do. And if it's not, fix it. I can't tell you how many times the FMAs have been right, but the autopilot was in flight director mode, or for some crazy reason, it was simply doing the wrong thing. So let's watch this in action using the original scenario. However, this time we're going to disarm GPS mode. Step 1 is to check the current modes, GPS armed heading. Step 2 is to press the nav button to disarm GPS. In step 3, we confirm the new FMAs, heading altitude 9,000. In step 4, we make sure the aircraft is doing what it's supposed to be doing. As the CDI is alive and it centers, here we make sure the aircraft does not turn on course. The aircraft flies through the course, which is what we were instructed to do. So now let's say ATC instructs us to turn back to intercept the Victor airway. Again, we will use our 4-step mode management procedure. Step 1, we check the current modes, heading out 9,000. In step 2, we turn the heading bud back towards the course, and we press the nav button. Step 3, we confirm the new mode. So GPS is armed, heading out 9,000. And in step 4, we make sure the aircraft is turning to capture the course. It is doing what we expect it to do. So that is the mode management procedure, and I have to tell you, that has saved my bacon more than once.